Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio.
Welcome to the messengers in our home. Hello, dear Kardec Radio listeners, and welcome to the messengers in our home. Tonight we're going to talk about Chapter 19, The Breath. Hello, Mackenzie.
Hello, Francisca. And hi, dear friends of Kardec Radio.
So before we start, we would like to invite you for a moment of prayer. Dear Mother, Father God, Creator of the universe and of our yet small hearts, we would like to thank you for the gift of life, all these opportunities to learn and to grow we have in our daily life. And tonight we are especially thankful for our breath. Breath that keeps us alive. The breath that sometimes helps us to stay calm in moments of trouble. Breath that may heal us in times of danger. And the breath that helps us connect to ourselves and therefore reconnect with you. And so we thank you for this opportunity to learn more about this most important faculty we all have. And we're excited to know how it is used in the spirit realm. We would like to thank the spiritual benefactors for all their love and support for us, for guiding us, for inspiring us to study messengers, and also to remind us in our daily lives about what life really is about. And so we would like to start our meeting with your blessings. So be it. Let us now listen to the reading of Chapter 19. Enjoy.
Chapter 19, Breath. After making some interesting remarks regarding the situation in the physical realms, Aniceto resumed determining what we would need for our work. Alfredo offered a friendly suggestion. In light of the imminent storm, you could stay with us for a few more hours and then be on your way at dawn. And I was deeply surprised when he stated, "You can use my car until it is no longer feasible. I'll provide a skilled driver and you'll save a lot of time." I couldn't hide my wonder. I knew about the work done by Nossolar's Samaritans, who used large animal-drawn vehicles in their rescue work in the lower regions. But considering the significant problems we had been faced with on the long journey to the aid station, I didn't think it was possible that the institution had such a means of transportation. I later learned that transportation systems in the zones closest to the Earth's surface are based on the transcendent properties of electromagnetism and are more common than one might think. Our guide seemed to be seriously pondering the situation and then remarked with concern, "We have pressing work to do in the physical realms. Vicente and Andre need to begin their active training." Alfredo smiled kindly, assuring us, "Well, you don't have to look any farther. There is always work to be done, no matter where one might be. Wherever there is a spirit of cooperation, God's work is also there. Our two friends could certainly help out around here. For example, they could accompany us in our prayer work, in which there is always plenty to do and many lessons to learn." "Excellent suggestion," exclaimed our instructor. "Individual or group prayer is always a vast reservoir of spiritually edifying lessons."
"Speaking of which,"
said Ismalia,
"we mustn't delay. It's almost time."
As if he had suddenly remembered all the work he had to do, the administrator said to his partner, "Olivia and Madalena need to be advised concerning the provisions that are urgently needed for tonight. We'll need the collaboration of a few more breath technicians. There are quite a few brothers and sisters in a serious state after having been overcome by powerful physical sensations." "Breath technicians?" I asked, perplexed, before Ismalia could make any remarks about this type of service. "Yes, my friend," answered Alfredo. "Even on earth, the healing breath is a sublime human privilege. However, while incarnate, we are very slow to lay hold of the great treasures that are ours by right. We usually live there, wasting time on fantasies, believing in futilities, or feeding suspicions. Those who could grasp the far-reaching implications of this subject could create highly effective breath therapy processes." "But is such a gift available to any incarnate spirit?" asked Vicente, sharing my surprise. Alfredo thought for a few seconds and answered, "As with magnetic passes, which can be done by a large number of people with noticeable benefits, the healing breath may also be used by most humans with impressive results. However, we must add that at any time and in any situation, individual effort is indispensable. Every worthwhile accomplishment requires serious support. The divine good demands human willingness to manifest itself actively. Our breath technicians were not trained quickly. They practiced for a long time and acquired experience at a high price. With everything, there is a right way to start. They are respected workers because of what they have achieved. They earn significant returns and enjoy enormous respect. But for all this, they must preserve the purity of their words and the holiness of their intentions." Understanding the interest that his words were arousing, the administrator continued after a brief pause. "In the physical realms, in order for the breath to be sufficiently established, it is imperative for the individual to have a healthy stomach, a mouth free of evil and accustomed to saying good things, and a righteous mind that is interested in helping. By complying with these requirements, we will have a calming and invigorating breath that is both stimulating and healing. By means of such breath, health, comfort, and life can be transmitted on the Earth's surface as well as here." And since Vicente and I could not hide our perplexity, Alfredo remarked, "This is nothing new. In addition to physically touching those he healed, Jesus sometimes touched them with the divine breath. The breath of life runs through all creation. Every sacred page that comments on the beginning of life refers to it. Haven't you ever thought of the wind as the creative breath of nature? As for me, ever since I entered Campo da Paz, where I was taken in the worst spiritual condition imaginable, I have been learning wonderful lessons on this subject, so much so that in heading this station, I have encouraged as much as possible the training of new workers in this area. I have offered special recompense to those who decide to begin this specialized task, because not everyone can do it. Ismalia greeted some important-looking workers who were preparing for this task. Impressed with what I had heard, I closely observed the preparations. However, when I was alone with Aniceto once more, I shared my enormous surprise with him. He answered in a confidential tone, "You are forgetting that the Bible itself, alluding to the creation of Adam, says that the Creator breathed on the form he had created, passing the breath of life to him. Referring to our incarnate brothers and sisters, we must realize, Andre, that even coming from imperfect but good-willed humans, every breath with the intention of relieving or healing is significant, because all of us are direct heirs of the divine power. Moreover, it is also necessary to realize that we are not dealing with something exclusive. You yourself spent a short while in our Ministry of Assistance. There is a large department there that specializes in the subject, in where worthy co-workers devote themselves to this type of work. On the physical plane, every mouth with a holy intention can render appreciable aid, but generous and pure mouths can distribute divine aid, transmitting vital fluids of health and comfort. I was hoping that Aniceto would continue by showing me the magnetic qualities of breath, but Alfredo enthusiastically and eagerly approached us, exclaiming, "The moment of our assistance and prayer work has arrived." "It will be our pleasure to accompany you," answered Aniceto with a smile. We had to end the lesson and attend to other duties. So last week we were talking about chapter 18 naturally, and it was information and explanations, and it was actually the very first time where we hear Ismalia's voice, where when she talks to us. Actually, she explains a little bit. Well, not to us, right? But as we keep saying all the time, all these teachings are not only for those who are listening there at the time, but for us who are participants in these conversations. So she employs a lot of examples from the Gospels, right? She cites Pilate, Caesar, Pharisees, Ananias, Sapphira. So she talks to us, giving a lot of explanation. Well, it's a small paragraph, but with a lot inside. What I said last week was, well, if we needed to dive into these explanations, we could take a lot of time. So I hope you have the chance to go back to chapter 18 and read what Ismalia says, and then dive into some of those metaphors that she uses for how some of the people in the time of Jesus behaved, how we behave, compare our behavior to their behavior, and see how we are doing, if we are getting better, if we got worse, what's going on. Hopefully, we are all getting better, doing better, and improving at all times. And then they talk a little bit about the prayer, and they cite a very, very beautiful story about coming back to earth and seeing all those beams of light coming from a specific church during wartime. So it was very, very beautiful. And today, well, they keep talking about they keep having this conversation, and then we finally reach chapter 19, in which I just said, well, it's entitled Breath. And I'd just like to make a brief remark about the title of this chapter, because breath may mean a few different things, not way too many, but I would just like to explain how this word is employed here. And the word breath here is not specifically about breathing and breathe out, as if we are as like I am doing here, as you are doing there, without not even noticing that we are breathing and then breathing in and breathing out. The word will be implied here, will be applied here, will be more of in that way of when you blow air out of your lungs, right? So this breath here, it has a very specific meaning, not, like I said, breathe in and breathe out, just as when we are talking, meditating, walking, or living our lives. So what we will learn here is that this breath, right, this kind of blowing the air out of ourselves, can be used for healing purposes. It's not that Andre will explain how to use it or the techniques on how to use this breath, but we will learn with him, with Alfredo Aniceto, what can be done with the positive or the affirmative use of breathing, of blowing air out of ourselves to other persons, right, or onto other people. So, but before we get there, it's interesting how some of these chapters are. The title is something, but then we take some time to get to what the title wants us to realize or to learn. So what in this chapter is not different than that. So they keep talking, Aniceto and all those friends, right, Alfredo, and we already know that they won't be able to go right now. At least it was what Alfredo wants them to know. His advice is not for them not to come to Earth right away, because there will be a storm, and then that's what he says here. Well, there's, in the light of this imminent storm, you could stay here for a few more hours, and then you will be away. You'll be on your way at dawn. And then he says, well, you can use my car, and I'll provide you with a driver so that he will drop you there. And what is interesting here is that, although, and I keep repeating myself, but I think it is very, very important, right? Depending on where you live, and that's what Andre tells us right here, right after he gives us what Alfredo said and told them. He says, well, in Nosolar, I saw, there were some animals that were rescuing people with the Samaritans. Once again, if you haven't read yet, please go and read Nosolar and study. You have all the chapters here with us. Prior to doing the messengers, we did the whole book of Nosolar, chapter by chapter, as we're doing here right now. So we always recommend that you go back or have the book with you, so that you know what are these names or these situations that Andre keeps referring to. So we see some animals there. He gives us some explanations. However, he never says anything about cars. Well, he mentions the Airbus, right, or the Airbus. It's a system of trains or metros, right, or a subway system that take spirits from one building to another. And he is surprised by having a car, and he gives us there in Nosolar lots of explanations of how this works or why they have it there and so on. So so that we go a little further down to what they wanted to talk to us about breath, I'm just going to say that, we live here on Earth. We have means of transportation. When we die, we don't transform ourselves in spirits, complete spirits, without any matter. We already know that we still have an enveloping substance, which is also matter. We call it perispirit in Spiritism. And since we are still under the influence of matter, we need some means of transportation. It may be our feet. Just like Andre learned with Vicente, well, not learned, they used, right? Instead of walking, they were volitating, like flying, right? But there may be a need of a faster way of transportation, since they don't control everything yet. They don't know all the rules. They cannot do everything that they need to do because they simply don't have the ability of doing so. So they have cars or whatever means of transportation they have, and that's why he is mentioning here. There's no, I personally don't see any big deals with this information. I just think that it would be natural for us, wherever we are, we try to find something that's similar to what we use until we learn not to need those things, right? Sometimes we may use something in our daily lives until something else is invented, or I learn to live without that specific thing, and then I go to a different level of learning or of doing something that I need to do. So I think it is really just a matter of time and of learning, so that they can get rid of these means of transportation. And naturally, the more we evolve, the less we need matter for us to be living. There will be less and less need for something material to transport me from one place to another, as we already saw when they were traveling with Vicente and Aniceto. Andre told us a few times that, well, Aniceto maybe is doing this just because he is with us, with Andre and Vicente. So Aniceto could probably just move very quickly without stopping, without having to walk or anything, because he's a more evolved spirit. He already knows how to do it. He probably did this lots and lots of times, so he knows how to do it. But since he has these two spirits who are learning, they are probably going to need a little help, and they will need something different to transport themselves. So it's natural on the way that Andre and Vicente are, and maybe in this case here also, Alfredo needs to transport spirits who are there in their station, in the 8th station. So it's natural that he might need some means of transportation. However, Aniceto says, well, I know that we can stay here, but we need to go. We need to do. We have a lot of work, and we are being expected. We have pressing work to do there, and they need, Vicente and Andre, they need to start their training, and that's what they are going there for. And Alfredo says, well, if you need what you need is training, you have to go far to get some training. There is always work to be done, no matter where one might be. And that is true, and that is true for us too, right? Sometimes I want to do some work, or some work on the good, and provide some work just to fulfill what I think it's necessary for me to evolve and help other people. And then we try to look, I don't have any hospital to attend to, or I cannot help my neighbors because they all have money, they all have everything. Do they have everything, right? I have friends, or I have people in my own house, and sometimes I'm fighting against them. I'm fighting with them instead of working right there, right? If I have, and that's what he says here, if I have a spirit of cooperation, if I have in myself this idea of really trying to help everywhere I am, I will find work anywhere and everywhere. And as he says here, when there is wherever there is a spirit of cooperation, God's work is also there. So right there where they are, they probably have a lot of work to be done. And right now, this part right here reminds me of when Andre is talking to Narcisa in No Solar, and all of a sudden, there is this person who is this spirit who is there suffering, and then he starts to vomit because of some passes that she's applying, and then all of a sudden Andre sees it, and instead of just being stuck there looking and seeing what she's doing, no, he goes and grabs some material to clean the floor and to go and help them. And that's exactly what Alfredo is telling us here. Well, there's always work to be done. What am I doing? What is my attitude when I am in a specific place? Am I open to help? Am I really opening myself to the possibility of helping and of learning at all times? Or I just want to do what I want to do, and probably that opportunity will take a lot of time to show up, and I will never be able to do exactly what I want to do, right? So that's what Alfredo is suggesting us here, right? I am at the Spirit Center, for example, or I am at the temple that I go to. Instead of waiting for people to ask me to do something, right? Why don't I go and approach them and say, hey, how can I help? Do you have anything for me to organize, for example? Do you have any books there? Can I put these books somewhere? Can I clean the floor? Do you have a broom there that I can use? Or do you have any work or any task that needs to be done? Anything. What is our spirit? Is it the spirit of cooperation that animates me, that moves me to do something? Or is that spirit of idleness that moves me? And that's what Aniceto says. Well, that's an excellent suggestion. I know that we could go and accompany you in your prayer work. Individual or group prayer is always a vast reservoir of spiritually edifying lessons, which it is, right? Because we're going to be together with a lot of people, and we're going to feel that power coming from everybody, right? From those words that are being said out loud, or sometimes just the presence of a lot of people together, thinking of the good things and emitting good thoughts around to the outsider, to whoever we are praying for. And Ismalia interrupts here, speaking of which, we must not delay. It's almost time. As if they were talking too much, and then, hey, we need to go work. So there is always that one who comes and say, hey, to talk is always good, especially if we're talking about good things, but we must not delay. It's time for us to go and do our prayer. It's almost time. While they will walk, right, and they will go to where they're going to meet to do their prayers. And what is interesting is that at that time, with what Ismalia said, it is as if Alfredo was awakened once again, right? That's why she is still there. He probably sometimes just doesn't focus that much, and it's a call for us too. It is hard, right? And that's why we all need people surrounding us to remind us of what we need to do, be it a work like this, or be it a work within ourselves. So if somebody is testing my patience, it's because I still need to work on that patience, right? So it's the person that's reminding me of what I need to do. And we all know how hard it is to have a person on our side that's always reminding us of what we need to do. But since we still didn't learn to not have that person or not have that reminder at all times, we need to do our work, and we need to go and say, well, let's do it. And then he tells what they need to do, and he mentions too two people, right? Two women here, Olivia and Madalena, and that they need to be advised because what they're going to need for tonight, and that they're going to need the collaboration of a few more breath technicians, and that's where he first mentions this breath thing that I was talking about in the beginning, right? And they need these technicians to help some brothers and sisters who are having a few problems, and these breath technicians are going to be the ones who will be able to help them. And Andre, maybe just like us, when we read this for the first time and we're reading and studying this for the first time, we said, breath technicians? What are you talking about? Never heard of anything that, person that blows air on another person to do something good to them. And Alfredo says, yes, my friend, there's nothing wrong with this. And he says, and I quote, even on earth, the healing breath is a sublime human privilege. However, while incarnate, we are very slow to lay hold of the great treasures that are ours by right. We usually live there, wasting time on fantasies, believing in futilities, or feeding suspicions. Those who could grasp the far-reaching implications of this subject could create highly effective breath therapy processes. So this is a lot here, but what is interesting is that what Alfredo is telling us is not something new. Maybe it is new for a bunch of us, but if we start looking in history of people who, and some of them indigenous people, but not only indigenous people that studied in the past, if breathing on a person or blowing air on a person on a specific type of wound or specific type of problem, they could do something, they found out that they could do. And there are a lot of, just like the passages that he mentioned before, that we mentioned before in No Solar, and that is also mentioned, in this chapter, we already read the chapter, so we know that they will talk a little bit or mention passages again. The idea of blowing this air from one person into another, onto another person, and these breathing techniques having a real application on helping other people to get healed, not to get completely cured just by that, but as a way of helping, of improving the medicine that we have today. And like he says here, instead of wasting time in fantasies or believing in futilities or feeding suspicions, if we could just decide to really stop and study these things, we could create, and that's what he says, highly effective breath therapy processes. So it is up to us. And in Spiritism, there are a few books and a few explanation in a few books by different authors and so on, that where they explain how this breath therapy or the healing, right, the healing breath therapies can help in certain cases with what are the cares that we need to take to help these people, for what kinds of diseases or what kind of problems that the person that comes to be helped need. Different types of breath techniques can be used. But Vicente, sharing Andre's surprise, asks, but is such a gift available to any incarnate spirit? And that's a fair question, right? And Alfredo thinks, and in a, how can I say this? A few paragraphs from now, he will say that that not everyone can do it because this is a very specialized task. So not everyone can do it. Just as, let's say, a person that is blind, right, or I don't know, have a problem with their hands, the person can drive, for example, but it's going to be much tougher for them to drive. So maybe the person can start by doing something different with their more in tune with their capabilities. Just like, anybody can be a doctor, right? Or, if you study enough, you can be a doctor. But maybe you're more into being a mechanic or being a lawyer or being an engineer. So everybody can do it, but not everybody can do it. Not because it's impossible for that person to do it, but it's because some people are more into a different kind of thing. And he starts by saying that, and that's when he mentions the passes, right? As with magnetic passes, which can be done by a large number of people with noticeable benefits, the healing breath also may be used by most humans with impressive results. So that's exactly what he's telling here. Well, everybody can give passes, but is everybody going to give passes? Is everybody interested in giving these passes, right? In the laying on of hands? It can be used. The person can be better at doing this than at doing that. We can all do it, but maybe it's not what I like to do it, what I like to do, or what I want to do. So, but one of the most important things, and that's how he handles this, he must add, and we must add that at any time and in any situation, individual effort is indispensable. Meaning, just like I used the example of a blind person, can a blind person drive? The person can drive, but a lot of things need to be adapted to the blind person, and the person needs to really put an effort in learning this and doing it the best way that the person can, right? Maybe I'm using a very, very, counterintuitive image here, but it's just to reinforce that, anybody can do it. However, it may be very, very tough for a certain person, way tougher than for a different person. However, it may be very easy for a blind person to hear noises, right? The person doesn't have the eyes, so it needs to compensate with the other senses, and one of them is hearing. So we all know that a person that doesn't see hears much more because the person needs to rely on that sense to navigate in the world. And for us, it's hearing, but since I also have my sight, I combine both to help me navigate. Therefore, usually I have less focus on listening than what a blind person can focus on because it's more accurate or can perceive different, more sounds differently than what we do. So, he goes on. He's saying that every worthwhile accomplishment requires serious support. The divine good demands human willingness to manifest itself actively. So God gives us the seeds. God gives us the wind. God gives us water. God gives us earth. God gives us. But I need to plant the seed. But the seed needs to grow and have its own inner strength to grow and win over the sand that's on top of it, right? And then sprout, right, outside of the ground, and then grow. So it comes from the inside. God gives us a lot of things, but we are the ones that need to really put our efforts if we want to learn, if we want to do something. In this case here, he's talking about breath technicians, but it can actually be applied for anything and everything in our lives. And that's what we need to really understand from this. If you want to be a passist, for example, right, to learn how to apply passes in your Spiritist center, you need to read about it, right, to make a course, to learn with somebody how to do it. If you want to give lectures, you need to study, maybe pay attention to how people speak, learn sometimes to create a PowerPoint presentation, and practice speaking. If you want to clean the house, you need to know what are the products that I need to have to clean the house. Every little thing that I need to learn, that I need to do, it needs to come from my willingness of doing it. It requires, for the most serious stuff, an even greater, right, interest, an even greater individual effort, which, as he says here, is indispensable. And as I'm talking here, Alfredo says that for this specific task, these breath technicians were not trained quickly. They practiced for a long time and acquired experience at a high price. So, if we want to do a certain specific type of task, we really need to put our efforts, and there will be specific tasks that will require high prices to be paid, meaning less time to do something else, more time of dedication to do this, dealing with people, and we can create a real scene with a lot of difficulties, with a lot of problems for us to learn. I want to be a doctor. You have to start studying very young. Will be 4, 5, 6 years of college. Then you're going to have to go to start practicing as an intern, not as a doctor yet, so that after, I don't know, maybe 8, 10 years, you'll become a real doctor. And then after that, it's just the beginning. We need to keep learning. We need to keep reading. We need to keep going to congresses, new techniques, and so on. So it's not something that once we learn, then we stop. No, constant learning, constant willingness, individual effort to keep going and going and going. And he says, right, that today they earn significant returns and they enjoy enormous respect. But for all this, they must preserve the purity of their words and the holiness of their intentions. Isn't this true for everything, though? Not only for the breath. Naturally, remember, we're talking about breath. We're talking about blowing air out of ourselves. So, first things first, right? We could probably think about, how is my breath in the first place, right? Practical things. Did I brush my teeth, for example, right? This is one thing. But see, he is not talking just about physical things. He's talking about what's inside of myself, spiritually, mentally, psychologically. We must preserve the purity of our words and the holiness of our intentions. This is what we need to have inside, so that what comes out from me comes in a much better way, instead of just physically, but spiritually also. So, and then he will continue, and he will say, he will develop this idea more, right? He will say that we need to do this kind of task, a healthy stomach, a mouth free of evil, and accustomed to saying good things, and a righteous mind that is interested in helping. So this is an expanded version of what they said: purity of their words and holiness of intentions. But he adds here the healthy stomach, right? So naturally, this is the physical part. Right? If I have a bad stomach, I'm gonna probably blow out, right, stuff that's coming from my stomach, right, from my lungs. Also, though, it's a mixture of these things. So what happens if I smoke, for example, right? How is my breath, right? the smell of my breath, and what do I put out from myself, right? So the healthy stomach, a mouth free of evil. But free of evil doesn't mean that I'm saying good things at all times. And that's why he says, and accustomed to saying good things. So it's a change, right? Depending on how and what I speak, I need to change the way I speak, the way I say the words, the way my intention with those words are, which brings us to the last part when he says a righteous mind that is interested in helping. So a mind that's correct, or that's always striving to stay connected with the goodness and interested in helping. Because I may be interested in myself only, or in saving myself, and that's why I'm doing it. No, I'm interested in helping the other. Not interested in because I'm doing this, I'm saving myself. No, it's about the other. It's not about myself. It's about the other. So by complying with these requirements, he keeps going, we will have a calming and invigorating breath that is both stimulating and healing. So if we not only eat better, if we not only breathe better, if we don't talk evil or say no evil, but say good things at all times, and I keep my mind righteous and interested in helping, I will be, no, I wouldn't say I will be perfect, but I will be striving to be better at all times. And naturally, with this, by means of a breath of a person that's doing this or making a real good effort on doing this or acquiring this, he says, health, comfort, and life can be transmitted not only here in the spiritual realm, he says, but on the earth's surface as well as here. Because the law is the same, right? If they are in their matter there, in a different density. So maybe they can be a little bit more effective because maybe it's more sensible, right? More sensitive. The perispiritual matter is more sensitive than here. But once we are here, if we learn how to do it, if we practice how to do it, if we use what he is saying here, he is advising us here, we will be able to help other people too, bringing health, comfort, and life through the breath for another person that's suffering. So I'm not an expert in this. I don't do passes. I don't use these breath techniques, but I've participated in some courses, so I know just the basics. So that's why I'm saying about this here now. But if you want to know more, just send us a message, and we may be able to put you into contact or in contact with some people that have more practice or know a little bit more, so that you can learn more about this if you're really interested in learning more about these breath techniques of helping people. So Alfredo continues, right? And he says, Jesus, for example, sometimes touched them with the divine breath. And there's a passage actually that is in the Gospel of John, right? And in the New International Version, the NIV, it's on chapter 20 of John, in verse 22, when he says, and with that, because Jesus just said, peace be with you, as the Father has sent me, I am sending you, right? When he appears to his disciples and is sending them to spread the message, right? And he says, and with that, he breathed on them and said, receive the Holy Spirit. So it is interesting because that mimics, and Aniceto will tell this to us in the further down on the road here in the same chapter. He will say that in the Bible, right, when God creates Adam, that's what he says, right? He breathed on them, and it's on chapter 2 of the Genesis, and chapter 2, verse 7, if I'm not mistaken, and also in the New International Version, the verse 7 says, "Then the Lord God formed a man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being." So it is, and these are the references to which Vicente and, Alfredo and Aniceto are referring to. Jesus breathing on their disciples. Jesus breathing on their disciples as if he is giving life to them so that they can go out and do what they need to do, right? So it is as if he is helping them with their divine, with their breath, right? And I'm just using his Alfredo's remarks here, Alfredo's work, and he says, Jesus sometimes touched them with the divine breath, right? And he says, the breath of life runs through all creation. And this breath, right, this wind, it is as if, we can't, well, how long can we stay without drinking or eating, right? People say that if we don't drink anything for, 2 days, 3 days at most, without eating, some people can spend even longer time without eating. But try to hold your breath for 20 minutes. We will all die. So it is as if this breath, the air that we breathe, gives us so much life, that we need it so much to see how much it is important to us, this breath. And we can find a lot of references in old books. In the Bible, we just read two pieces of it, of this idea of this breath of life coming into us. And this breath also may also mean like the spirit, right? As if God is giving us the spirit of life. This metaphor that the Genesis is at this time, right? Explaining in metaphorical way how, right, God creates and then gives us life, right? And life is given through breath. That's what we're studying here. So it can be used to heal. It can be used to provide life, right, to those cells that are dying, to that specific wound, to that specific problem in my body or in another person's body. So that's what he is explaining to us. And like I read before, because this is such a specialized task, he is giving special recompense to those who want to do it, because not everyone can do it. Just wrapping up what he was saying and talking to us about how tough it is, but we all need people doing this here as he is where he is with Ismalia. And then after he says that, a few people come, Ismalia greets some important looking workers preparing to this, and Andre was observing the preparations and so on, so that he could learn a little bit more about that. And then Andre, always curious, right? And obviously, and in this case, with the kind of healthy curiosity, wants to know more, right? And curious and I want to know more about this. And Aniceto, now that he's alone with him, says what we mentioned, that when the Creator creates Adam, he breathes into Adam, and then Adam is born. Naturally, this is a metaphor, as we just said. And Aniceto says, hey, I don't know why you're so amazed by this, because even we were, and I'm putting more stuff here, but we are creating in God's image. If God can give life, if God can heal, we can do some of that also, right? Jesus tells us that, I did a lot of things, and you can do what I did and much more. But you need to apply yourself into it. And that's what Aniceto is inviting us here. And he says, and I'm going to quote because I think this is beautiful. Referring to our incarnate brothers and sisters, we must realize, Andre, that even coming from imperfect but good-willed humans, every breath with the intention of relieving or healing is significant, because all of us are direct heirs of the divine power. We were created in the image of God, meaning that we are co-creators. We are intelligent. Right? As the answer to the first question of the Spirit's book, what is God? God is the supreme intelligence. We have this intelligence with us and the power to do something, but we need to know that we need to apply ourselves into it. Unfortunately, we sometimes want to do it, and then when we find the first obstacle, we give up and say, I can't do it. And that's not how we learn. If I want to become, a programmer, a computer programmer, I want to create apps for my phones, for example, or to build things, it will not be in one day that I will become a programmer. I will need to read, I will need to practice, I will need help, I will need a lot of stuff and a lot of time to do it. Here's the same thing. If I am a direct heir of the divine power, but I need to learn how to use it. So I need to practice, I need to study, I need to go on, and I need to persevere. If not, it will not work. So to finish what Aniceto is saying to Andre, he says, well, Andre, you were there, right, in the Ministry of Assistance, and you saw a lot of people working there. Maybe you didn't pay attention, but there were a lot of people working there, helping, learning, and practicing. On the physical plane, and he finalizes, every mouth with a holy intention can render appreciable aid, but generous and pure mouths can distribute divine aid, transmitting vital fluids of health and comfort. So what he's saying here is complementing what Alfredo, and I keep confusing their names, Alfredo was saying, everybody can do it. Everybody with a holy intention can render appreciable aid. If I have a holy intention or an intention that's pure, I can render appreciable aid. But if I have a generous and pure mouth, I will not only render appreciable aid, but I will distribute divine aid, giving away the vital fluids of health and comfort, as Alfredo was explaining to us. So it is a process of inner transformation, so that when I transform myself, I will be able to help even further, even more, the person that's coming to me, right? Can you imagine if I only speak bad words, I only speak about bad ideas, and then comes a person and asks me how to help? What will I be able to say if I don't study, if I don't think about good things, and what are the types of advice that I'm going to be able to give? Right? It will be the advices that I listen to them all the time, that I talk about all the time, and not good advice sometimes. And I probably can give appreciable aid, but will I be able to distribute divine aid? And if we are in this type of work, right, of passes, of using some of these breath techniques, I need to be very careful. Just like a doctor that will go into surgery, right? Is a surgeon or a nurse. How much time do they spend washing their hands, putting all those clothes completely clean, so that they don't transmit from them to the other person who is receiving their help, viruses, bacteria, and so on. What about our minds? What about our mouths? What are we transmitting when we are talking to another person? What's the type of what's my mental attitude? What is my mind filled with? So that's basically where Aniceto leaves us, because then when he says that, and Andre was eager that Aniceto could continue helping him and showing him how it works and explaining, going into details and so on. But Alfredo comes and say, hey, the moment of our assistance and prayer work has arrived. And Aniceto smiles and said, well, it will be our pleasure to accompany you. So they had to end that lesson specifically to attend to other duties. And that's where we end our comments on this chapter once again. And I'd like to say once more, if you want to know more about the magnetic passes, about breathing techniques and other techniques of passes, give a shout out to us. You can send us an email. You can go to the website KardecRadio.com, and then there you will find all the ways that you can communicate with us, and we always appreciate what you have to say, comments, suggestions. If you want us to develop a topic a little bit more, since we're going following the book, we'll not have a specific way to stop and then talk a little bit about a little bit more about that any specific topic. But if we have the chance in a different chapter or later on, we can give you an answer online, or we can send you back an email, or show you a specific program on Kardec Radio where they talked about that. So it's always we are always here to receive your comments, your suggestions, and your questions if you have any of them. But before we end this program, this is the program that will go that's 2 days before Christmas. And we from the messengers in our home, and me specifically, Francisca will give her her message after I give mine here. But I would like to say a very, very Merry Christmas to all of you. This year, I'd like to mention the Joanna de Angelis Spiritist Society, which is located in California. And I had the pleasure of knowing a few of their workers. And I know, because they told us that they listen to this program and they study these books together with us. So I'd like to say a Merry Christmas to all of you at JAS, right? Joanna de Angelis Spiritist Society. And by wishing them a very Merry Christmas, I'm wishing this Merry Christmas to all of you who listen to us, right? Without you listening, there would be no meaning to be recording this. So we know that you are out there, right? Sending good thoughts to us, sending your questions, sending your love. And we want to say that we are here doing this work with Jesus always in our minds, hoping and striving to do the work that he wants us to do, right? When we read a few minutes ago that he came, and when he arrived with appeared to his disciples, and he says, peace be with you. As the Father has sent me, I am sending you. So hopefully we are becoming, or we are already disciples of Jesus. And then he breathes on us and says, receive this Holy Spirit. So he gives us this life, right? the life that is not the material life, but this spiritual life. So in this Christmas, right, which represents the birth of this Christ, may Jesus Christ be born inside each one of us. And I hope you all have a great night or a great day of celebration of Jesus. Remember him at all times and celebrate his birthday, right? With your family, with your friends, wherever you are, even if you are alone, we are never alone. Just have him in our thoughts and we will always be connected. So have a very, very Merry Christmas to you too, Francisca, and we'll see you next week in another chapter of The Messengers in Our Home.
So, dear friends, it's nearly Christmas time, and I also wish you a blessed time with your family and friends, a time of reflection, of the importance of Jesus coming to earth, our guide and model, as he was and is for us. Spirited teachings, and amongst all the merriness and celebrations in family, let us focus as well on the true meaning of Christmas and reconnect to Jesus, our Master, the Governor of Earth, and celebrate the rebirth of our relationship with him as well. Merry Christmas to everyone, and we're looking forward to being with you again next week.
Thank you for listening to Kardec Radio, broadcasting live every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Email us and share your comments at www.kardecradio.com. Until next time, we wish you many blessings.